name is TSC and welcome to Iwari's Voice. Okay, so this is part 2 of my Qlts Mct experience. I've already explained in the first video what the Qlts is about and providers of Qlts and my personal experience on taking the exam twice. Okay, so this video I'm going to be talking about studying and the exam itself and your results. So leg up. If you're new to my channel, welcome. It's great to have you here. Please hit the thumbs up button, comment below, share this video, and subscribe. Hit the bell notification button so you can know whenever I post a new video. Thank you. Let's get into it. So, talking about Qlts studying, right? Studying for the Qlts, it's a lot because we have 11 SRA day 1 outcomes. So you basically have to study 11 topics and answer questions on 11 topics in 5.5 hours with 1 hour break. So you're there for like 6.5 hours. So if you're working full time on studying, it can be a lot, especially depending on how long you have to prepare for the exam. But I can tell you it's realistic, it's doable. You can study for this exam in 2 months, okay? Don't feel down, don't feel discouraged. Oh my gosh, I'm late into the game. You can do this, okay? I believe in you. You can do it, okay? I started like proper studying for my exam after I explained in the other video. I picked it up and then I dropped it and then I picked it up again in November-ish, and then I got like really serious with it. So I had like highs and lows, but I'll say it took like 2 months of like proper intense studying, waking up in the morning and watching my videos or reading a part of the book. But you can do it. Like, I trust and I believe in you guys. You can do it. When it comes to studying, my number 1 rule is know what works for you, okay? Know what works for you. What works for everybody doesn't work for you. If you like individual studying, please do your individual studying. If you like group studying, please try and find the support groups. There are support groups on Facebook. There are support groups on LinkedIn. Find a support group and, you know, just have a support partner to encourage you. And also, you know, go through the group studying with you. But the important thing is to know what works for you, okay? The next point is to set realistic goals and targets, okay? So set realistic goals. Don't be like, oh, I'm going to finish this SRA Day 1 topic in 1 day, because it doesn't happen like that. It is a lot. Imagine covering the whole of tort law. Like, I did tort for a whole year in undergrad. For my whole first year, I did tort in first semester, second semester tort. I did contract first semester, second semester. So imagine covering that whole thing in 1 day. It's not realistic. So set realistic goals for yourself. Know what works for you and set realistic goals. Have a study guide and stick to it, okay? If you're very organized, it could be a very organized study guide, like timetable. I'm going to study this at this time. If you're not so organized, just have a rough work of what you like to do. Know when best you assimilate. So for me personally, I assimilate best in the morning. So I go to bed on time, or I try to go to bed on time, and I wake up really early. So around 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. I start work at 8:30, and luckily for where I live, I don't have a commute. It's like a 15-minute walk to work. Hallelujah. Perks of living where I live, okay? So it's like a 15-minute walk to work. So I could wake up at like 6 o'clock or 5:30 and then study. Just play the videos. I play it in times 2 so I can get a lot more done in the time frame that I have. And just study and read, because I know I assimilate best in the morning. I am at my best in the morning, and I want to make sure that I'm giving myself my best, okay? If you're your best in the evenings, then plan to study in the evenings. Make sure you give yourself the best, okay? Don't give it to a workplace and then you come back tired. So for me, when I get back from work, I don't want to study. I just want to rest. Okay, so that's not the time for me to start saying, oh, let me pick up my book and start reading. No, it's not going to work for me. So know what works for you. Set realistic goals, realistic timelines. Have a study guide, and please stick to it. So if you're using one of the providers that, you know, give you a study guide and a timetable, great. If you're not, please have a study guide and stick to it. It's advised that you read and review your material twice. For me, I read and reviewed my materials once, okay? And I was good to go for the exam. So don't put too much pressure on yourself that, oh, I have to do it twice and I'm not even halfway there and it's almost time for the exam. At least go through the material once. I remember the first time I did it for QLT school, they give you a call like maybe a week or 2 before the exam to ask, are you ready and all that. So both providers are really good. Please, they're really good. Feel free to go for either one. I'm giving you the pros and cons in the previous video, right? But they give you a call, and I remember one thing the man said to me is that, "Oh, do you feel prepared?" I'm like, "Not really." He was like, "Have you covered all the, like, I think you can do it." It was like really trying to like big me up, like, "Ah, you can do this. Hey, you can do it." But I was like, have you covered all the study materials?" And I was like, "No, I haven't," because I hadn't. I was doing group work, and I only covered my part, and then I was reading the other person's part. So I didn't really cover it the way I would like. And you can hear from his tone that he was a bit disappointed. Like, if he had covered at least once, maybe there'll be hope. Now, mind you, I only failed by 4%. So the pass mark moves from time to time. So the pass mark the first time was 58%, and I got 54. And I didn't cover the whole syllabus. So I'm telling you, you can do this. You can really do it, okay? Keep at it. Try and cover the syllabus at least once. If you have time, cover the syllabus twice. But you're good to go. I think you're good to go covering the syllabus once. But make sure you cover it, and you cover it in detail. Don't be lazy about covering your syllabus, right? The second time around, I passed, and I was way above the pass mark. But yeah, the second time around, like I said, I completed 99% of the syllabus because Barbary gives you a time check. So I completed 99%. So just have faith in yourself. You can do this. The next point is identify your areas of weaknesses and work on it. So for me, I didn't really like taxation, right? So I tried as much as possible to do taxation questions. Like, they were frustrating because, you know, when you get an answer wrong, it could like discourage you, but just keep doing it, okay? Know your areas of weaknesses and work on it, because what really pained me about the first time around that I did the exam was that I failed by 4%. So my mind started thinking, oh, maybe it was this question, or maybe it was that question. Because the first part of the exam the last time was so easy. I was like, walk in the park. And then the second part of the exam was quite difficult. I'm like, Olua is in your hand. Oh, Lord God is in your hand. So I was not thinking about the second part of the exam, or maybe it was this question. Maybe I could have improved this question. You don't want to have that, okay? So focus on your areas of weaknesses. If you know you're not good in property law, please do more studying on property law, and do more questions on property law. If you know taxation is your weak point, do more on that particular area, okay? This links into my next point, which is questions. I can't overemphasize the importance of questions, right? Because it's one thing to know the concept, and it's one thing to know how to answer the questions. But by doing past questions, I realized that there were some questions that I answered, and then they'll tell you whether you're right or wrong, and it will be something between you pick that the client may do this, but the answer was that the client must do this. You know, something so trivial in my mind, but when it comes to the law, every word matters, okay? So doing those questions will help you practice how to answer questions Qlts Mct style. So please do questions. So when it comes to the do questions point, right, what I did personally was, after every module, when I finished a particular SRA outcome, so let's say I just did contract law, and I just went through the contract law videos, all the contract law terms like offer, acceptance, consideration, promissory estoppel, all those topics. What I did next was that I read the book, so it solidified my knowledge of what I heard in the video, and then I did questions. So try and do questions immediately you study the topic. So I did the questions on that topic that asked me questions about promissory estoppel, asked me questions about, you know, the basics of contract, obviously not tort, basics of contract, offer acceptance, and all those things, everything that had to do with contract. And I used that method for each module. So when it came to tort, it was the exact same thing. When it came to criminal law, because criminal law, I felt like they were so similar, so many similar things, like manslaughter, murder, like when it came mens rea, actus rea, theft, robbery, like you have to know the mens rea and the actus rea for each of these things, whereas it could just easily get mixed up in your head. So just knowing these exact points. So when I watched the video about it, read the book about it, remember it's just 2 small books, not huge books, read the book on those topics, then I did the question, so it solidified my memory. I was like, oh, okay, so I got it wrong there, okay, oh, I got it right there, solidified my memory. And then from time to time I'll do like proper mock questions that kind of mixed it all up. Because the way it is in the exam is that they're not going to tell you, this is a contract law question. No, they're not going to tell you. So you have to be able to decipher, okay, is this contract or tort? Is this property or, I don't know, something else? You have to be able to know from the question, and then you have to know the best way to answer it. So yes, sometimes I also did questions that just mixed it all up. and then I answered, so I know that, okay, I can answer these questions in this manner. So do questions, do questions, do questions. Very important. Now, my last point is, it's a closed book test. You cannot take book inside the exam hall. It's computer based and it's closed book. So you can't take any books inside. You need to know it all in here. So I can't overemphasize studying and just following these tips and points that I've given you. The next aspect I'm going to be talking about is the exam itself. Dum dum dum. So I've kind of touched on it in the previous video, telling you it's 5.5 hours of sitting down and ticking your answer, okay? But when it comes to the exam itself, there's just some pointers I want to give you. Yes, it is 5.5 hours, but it's 2 hours 45 minutes, 2 hours 45 minutes divided in two. You have a 1 hour break in the middle. So when it comes to the exam, please be relaxed. Don't be agitated. Don't be worried. Like, what do you usually do on a day-to-day? Do you, have breakfast? Please have breakfast. Don't skip breakfast because you're worried. I remember the first time I did it, I ate breakfast. Second time, I ate breakfast. Please, I'm not... And it takes a lot of getting used to, right? The first time I wrote the exam, I had breakfast, yes. But sitting down for so long, for such a long period of time, I needed a pick-me-up in between, like chocolate or something like that. So I had those pick-me-up snacks, okay? I had a banana and I had chocolate. And I told them, see you, I know I'm going to need a pick-me-up in the middle. I have my reasons. But I told them, and I left it at the desk. And like, the first time I wrote the exams, I was physically shaking. Like, I was physically shaking. Not because I was scared, but because I needed that pick-me-up. So know what works for you, okay? Now, at these exam centers, they're really understanding. Just explain it to them before you go in. Please, I know I'm going to need a pick-me-up. Can I just please put my chocolate here so I can, give myself that extra sugar boost if I need it? Can I just put my banana here? They're really understanding. In the two times I wrote the exam, the two centers were understanding, and they let me do that. Allow extra time to arrive at the exam center. So when I wrote the exam the second time, I wrote it in Coventry. It was during lockdown, and there was no parking spaces besides there was no free parking spaces beside the exam center. I think some of the parking spaces were closed. So I know the way you have all those complexes that you can drive in and park, they were closed because of lockdown. And I remember getting there early, and someone that had gotten there before me was looking for a parking spot. She was also black, so they thought she was me. So when I walked in, they were like, "Oh, have you gotten a parking spot?" I'm like, I'm just arriving. And they're like, "Oh, sorry, it must be another lady." So the lady came in, and you don't need that stress on the morning of your exam, like trying to find a parking spot. So the lady had come early, but then she couldn't find anywhere to park. And then she had to go out and try and find a parking spot. Mind you, she didn't live in Coventry, so she came from outside of Coventry, try and find a parking spot before she now came in and then cooled down. Also, make sure you're ready, okay? Have an extra cardigan. So if you want to take it off in the exam hall, you can take it off. They might come and take it off you, but both times that I went, I made sure I had extra cardigan because I don't know how their AC would be or anything, and I worried. So when I got into the exam hall, if I was too warm, I took it off. So the first time they came to collect it because you're not allowed to have anything around you. But the second time I just left it on throughout. But I have extra pieces of clothing if you know you get cold easily. I don't know, it might seem mundane, but let your hair be okay, because there was someone that came to the exam and she wore a beret because she didn't want her hair showing. She had a bad hair day. But they take your picture when you're about to write the exam. They were like, sorry, you have to take the beret off. And she was really embarrassed. She didn't want to take it off, but she had to. So make sure that you're good to go for like taking a picture and stuff, because there's nothing like wearing a beret. But who cares? It's exam day. Everybody's just trying to pass. Nobody's really looking at how you look like, okay? Bring your identification. So please read the email you get from when you book the exam and bring your ID with you. It's really important. You cannot write the exam if you don't have the appropriate ID. I think they needed two identifications. So the first one I brought was my passport, and then the second one I could use my bank card that had my name on it. But please read the email and know the identification that your exam center wants. My next point is to bring lunch, okay? Please bring lunch. The first time I wrote the exam, I wrote it in Birmingham. During my 1 hour lunch break, I had to start looking for ways to buy food. And please, like, believe you me, you don't want to be going through all that in the middle of your, 5.5 hour exam. You just want to have the food there, ready, eat, relax your brain from everything that's just gone through, and then ready to go back and start. So please bring lunch. The second time around, I brought lunch, I brought snacks, I brought meat pie. I even ordered where I was staying, because I stayed in an Airbnb, and I went to school at Warwick, so I kind of knew Coventry a little bit. So that's also helpful if you can do the exam somewhere that you kind of know. So I knew Coventry a little bit. So I ordered African food. I ordered jollof rice, peppered fish, meat pie, puff puff. Like, order all the good food that makes you feel good. You're doing an exam, and it is a rigorous exam. I ordered it, so I packed it and I took it with me to the exam hall. Mind you, I wasn't in the mood to eat jollof rice during lunchtime, but I had it there, so it was an option. So I think I took meat pie, took a drink, and then maybe some puff puff, and I ate my meats from my jollof rice. But I was prepared the second time around, so please bring lunch. The next thing is, you need to prepare emotionally, right? This is a 5.5 hour exam, right? So please do mocks in the time frame at home when you're doing your questions. Sit for that 2.5 hour period. And that's one thing I'm grateful for, because one of my friends, the first time I was taking it, she was like, Chelsea, you need to sit down and like do this exam from start to finish. Do your mocks from start to finish, even if you're tired, because when you're tired in the exam hall, it's not like you're going to be like, oh, I want to take a nap. No, you're going to have to sit through it. So try and sit through it and, you know, write the exam. So that's what I would advise you to prepare emotionally. Sit through your mocks 2.5 hours and do several mocks like that, so you know your body is ready for that emotional stress. So because it's there are 180 questions in total, 2 hours 45 minutes. That means those 180 questions are divided into 2. So you kind of have roughly like 2 minutes per question. If you can't answer a question, please go to the next question. You can flag it and come back to it to answer it, okay? Do not get bogged down on the question, because you want to spend an hour. That's not even wisdom. An hour trying to solve one taxation question when you only have 90 minutes. And then you rush with your remaining 30 minutes to solve the extra 8 to 9 questions. So if you've spent close to 2 minutes on a question or 2 minutes on a question and you can't seem to understand, please flag it up and come back to it. Another important point to note is there's no negative marking. So if you get a question wrong, you're not going to be minused or negative mark. There's no negative mark. You're good to go with flagging up the question and coming back to revisit it later. So that's my tips on studying and the actual exam. When it comes to the results, it varies from time to time. So the results can be released anywhere between, I think, 3 or 4 weeks to 5 weeks after the exam. The first time around, it was released, I think, 4 weeks after the exam. And then the second time around, it was released, I think, around 5 weeks. I was so nervous, so nervous the second time, because it was my wedding week. Like I told you, I wrote my exam a month before my wedding. So it took 5 weeks, a month and a week before my wedding. It took 5 weeks, and then they were releasing the exam on my wedding week, the results. And like when I saw on the WhatsApp group that, oh, results are out, I couldn't look at it. I had to give my husband to look at it, and he was trying to prank me. He was trying to, you know, give me the eye like. I was like, my heart had flown. But yeah, it was the wedding week. I got the results that week, 5 weeks after the exam, and I was way over the pass mark. So that worked out. And yeah, I'm now preparing for my OSCE. I'll wait to finish my OSCE before I give tips and pointers. But I hope this video was really helpful, and I'll see you in the next video. Comment below, let me know what you think. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. If I've listed any resources, I would put them in the description box below. Feel free to ask me questions. My details are in the description box below. Comment, like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Thank you. Bye. You don't need that stress the morning of your wedding trying to find a parking spot because all the parking spaces are closed.
Morning of the exam, not wedding.
I said wedding.